am back in the garage. I've had a busy month, so now it's time to start working on these sills. So the first thing I need to do before I get started on starting to line up the sills or the castle section is repairing this panel here. So this section is where the castle section flap fits to, and obviously it needs to be a flat surface. So we're going to have a go at just cutting that out and welding a new panel in. So I've got a sheet of metal that I can just use as a patch. We'll just line it up and then draw on where it is. As you can see, it's a pretty good right angle there, so hopefully I'll just be able to follow it down and along, because it should be a square, I believe. Right, I've just cut the replacement piece out and we'll just see how it fits up there. I always remember to try and cut a bigger piece than I maybe need, just to make sure that I don't cut a piece that's too small, because you can always grind off. Right, let's work out which way it should go. I think it was this way around. Yeah, although there's a tiny gap at the top, that should be fine. And I'll just bridge that with a weld. Of course you should have a little gap, but also there are a few gaps up here from where I took some of the spot welds off. To begin with, I'm just going to put a few tack welds just to hold it up, just to make sure that I can take this away. I'm really impressed with that panel. That looks quite nice. Obviously you've got little bits might need to go over at some point, but hopefully it will do the job. And remember, the castle section part is coming up here. So now it is quite a daunting bit. We have to start lining up and fitting all of the sections of the sills. So first section is the castle section, and there are a few, apparently, there are a few important, well, one main important measurement, and that is 5.5 inches, I believe, from the bottom, or from the top of this section to the bottom of the castle section, but we'll have to work that out. The castle section should sit on this section here, so obviously we'll need to clean this up. So we'll do that now. That's a bit neater. Now, before we properly weld it, I'm going to put some Pour 15 in there, and that's like paint on rust. It's supposed to be brilliant, like hard to chip, and it's been well recommended. So we'll paint that before we finally weld all the bits on. Right, so this is the castle section. Has a slight curve at this end, and the flap that obviously will need to be bent up on this end. Right, so this section here just fits in on the frame coming across, and then it should, you might need to get a hammer out just to make sure, it should all line up. These two panels should be sort of parallel to each other. And this section meets at the back up here. You can see the bottom of this needs to be 5.5 inches. So it's just running it all the way along, seeing that it all meets up. Lovely. Then obviously up here you'll need to work out where it goes, following it up. And obviously it's more difficult at this end, but hopefully if you've got it lined up here, you'll be then able to use the inner sill to work it out, and you can use a jack to hook it up. Sort of beforehand, trying to work it out really does work, because I realised that I needed to move it along because it wasn't meeting up here, and that I need to grind off some of the welds that I put on this sill repair panel, because it's stopping this section from going up as far, and you can see there's gaps along there, and obviously it needs to be touching. Right, so I've just used the flap disc, or flap wheel, just to go across here, just to make it ready for when tomorrow we weld up along the seam, just to ensure nothing gets into the sort of inner sill. I've also gone along the bottom, just taking off all the little bits where the spot welds were. And also I need to finish taking off this jacking point, which I totally forgot about. So tomorrow when we mount up the castle section, we'll also need to put in the strengthener for the jacking point, and I have a feeling we'll be cutting into the inner sill, because that, just to get around these pieces here, because I don't really want to cut off any more than I have to. It's a new day. Today we're going to start welding up the sills, but first of all we need to drill the holes in the castle section and a few other of the parts to get it ready so we can puddle weld through it. Right, so these are all the holes that I've drilled into the castle section. I've also just used the flap just to take off all the burrs, just so we have a nice flush finish. I've also put the holes into the jack strengthener. Just need to give these a coat of weld through primer, and then I can start setting them up in the car. So now I need to start lining it all up. I'll be using a few clamps and possibly the jack just to hold it in place. I need to remember that it needs to be moved quite far over this way. So what I believe I'm looking for is a similar gap all the way along here. So what I'm going to do first is just put a few sort of tack welds along here, and then I can bring it up, because I'm not sure how. I presume that I really shouldn't be able to get any sort of leverage in between here. But this side is perfect, but this side there is a slight gap, so I'm not really sure if that's why that is. But we'll have a go. Hopefully it'll work. Right, now that's done, we can start measuring, just making sure that it is 5.5 inches all the way along, and from here, yep, it seems to be. Right, so I should have probably done this before I tack welded this in, because the strengthener is sort of right in there, but it is 5.5 inches, so I don't know, probably next time I'll probably say to do this bit before you do everything else. So now I'll weld that in, and then I'll start putting the outside sections on. That is the jacking strengthener all welded up. So I just put some puddle welds on that. Hopefully it will stay. Obviously this is still all tack welded. I'll do some more measurements, sort of just keep measuring. And then I'm now going to put the inner sill up and see what I need to cut. Right, so I'm just putting the inner sill on, just try and work out what bits I need to cut and what bits I need to leave, really. Right, so where I'm running into a problem is I think this will all go under here quite nicely, but here it's not able to get this bit up because just this part hasn't worked very well, and I'm going to cut it here so this bit will lay flat on top, because I can't pry these two sections apart, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is cut down and along here, and that will hopefully allow me to get it all in place. Alright, so I've just cut this panel just at the top, and let's see if it will go in. It might be that I'll just need to keep coming back to it, just taking more and more little bits off, but hopefully not. Right, so it's just snagging up here, so under this, I think it's the A pillar, so I'm just going to go over that. I'm just going to go over this and just cut a little bit away from here, just so it can slot up nicely. Back again. Right, I've cut that section out, let's see how it goes up. Right, again, it's just snagging here, so we'll take it back, take a little bit more off. I just don't want to take too much off. That is the problem. Hopefully this will be the last one. So what I might do, as this is quite secure here, I might tack weld it just up here, so I can then start putting the outer sill on. So we'll see how that goes. So I just went for the worst welds I possibly could do, so without gas and on one of the lowest settings, just so I know that it will be easy to remove. These are just tack welds, just keeping it in place so we can start fitting the outer sill and then checking out, so we can start checking out the outer sill and see how that fits up and the door gap. Right, so just like the last piece, it needs to go around this section, and I've spoken to someone from an MG specialist and they say that they would advise just cutting through there. We need to make sure that when we mount it all up, that this section should lie flat up here. So we've got a bit of work to do. I've just cut this section out down here, which will hopefully be the right section for here, and we'll try and fit it. Right, let's try and fit this. Paul and I just fitted the door that was originally on this car, just to make sure that everything lined up. We've got all the outside sill, inner sill, the diaphragm and castle section all lined up. So now it's just taking it off and now re-welding everything properly. So that's using spot welds. So I'll need to drill into the diaphragm, I'll need to spot weld the castle section in properly. I'll probably do seam sealer. I need to remember to use this, and then hopefully it will line up as well as it did earlier. I did have to use jacks with the outer sill just to push it up, because for some reason, I don't know if it was when it was being made, it must have warped slightly, so it needed just pushing up to form the right shape. We've also had to cut in here, we've taken a bit off here, and now it's just really grinding everything back, making sure everything's a good surface to weld on and get welding. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, comment down below and subscribe to see future videos.